Thanks for coming here today, guys. So my name's Ben. I'm a former TAFE student. I was here when it was still called the Central Institute of Technology. So I started my Certificate 4 back in 2010. So mine's not really the standard designer's story. I'm not going to start by saying, I always wanted to be a designer. Everything I did when I was at school was sit there and do little doodles and stuff like that. There was kind of never any doubt in my mind what I wanted to do. That kind of just wasn't me at all. I went to university after I finished high school and I got a marketing degree. Worked for a little while after that and kind of wasn't really satisfied with the jobs that I was doing. So I thought, hey, I'll go to TAFE, start studying design, and it might help me to get a job at an advertising agency or something like that. So I instantly fell in love with design as soon as I got here. Sort of everything about it was without knowing it, everything that I kind of wanted to be doing. So I was in my late 20s at the time. I started pretty late. So being a little bit older than most of the students at the time, I kind of felt like I wanted to start my career as soon as possible. So I ended up leaving after diploma year rather than going through and doing the advanced diploma. It wasn't inherently a good or bad decision, but it kind of did leave me with a few things that I kind of just had to learn on the job rather than picking up while I was still at TAFE. So got my folio together, started doing a few interviews and things like that. And it went okay. The job prospects looked all right, but it was kind of just the jobs that I was going for weren't really what I wanted to be doing. I kind of didn't want to be a 30-year-old junior designer and have to work my way up from the bottom. So I basically decided to start my freelance career straight after leaving TAFE. So first step, I needed to create my brand. I needed an identity. So what I did, this was actually something that I threw together while I was sitting in the computer labs at TAFE in between classes one day. The very creatively titled Ben Cole Design. But it worked out for me pretty good to start with. So after getting my identity sorted, I needed to look for clients. I needed to find people who were going to pay me, and it was a confusing time. It was I was fresh out of TAFE. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know how to look for work. I had kind of grand ideas that I'd kick things off, and then the work had come in, and I'd be rolling around on a bed in $50 notes or something like that. But it's not really the way that it worked. So. Like I say, it was a tough start, and it was so tough that I couldn't hope to just start my freelance career full-time from the get-go. So what I did was I worked part-time. I worked as a quality assurance manager for a recruitment company, which is even more boring than it sounds. But it gave me the opportunity to kind of just take on projects as they came in. And it sort of gave me a fallback. So I had income that was coming in, I could pay rent, I could do everything like that, and then I could concentrate on trying to get clients and work that I wanted. And it allowed me to fill up an online portfolio and just build up the clients to be able to succeed. So at the start, I did get some good opportunities to get things moving. So first of all, I had a friend who introduced me to someone who was setting up a charity at the time. So I did some work doing the initial branding from them. It was all unpaid, so it was kind of just a case of finding work that I could fill up my folio with. And they actually ended up becoming one of my best clients, and I still do work for them today. So I was actually introduced through Brendan Hibbett to someone else who was setting up a tech startup at the time as well, and they needed to get a graphic designer on the team. As with most startups, it didn't actually end up going anywhere, but again, it was a good way to get projects that I could put on the website and just have stuff that I could use to attract other clients to me. Also, I was quite lucky to have quite an entrepreneurial family. So a lot of them were kind of little business owners at the time. So it allowed me to get a bunch of branding and website work and just get a, like I say, it was all at that time just about filling out my online folio with kind of real work so that when it did come time to attracting those clients, that I had something to show them. Yeah, the best thing I guess I did at this stage was developing relationships. So the free work that I did for the charity that I was telling you about, that led to probably 80% of the work that I got in the first couple of years that I'd started. And that was just through referrals from her onto other businesses that I could get paid through. But yeah, it was a slow start. So I guess probably the thing that I could have done better to start with was self-promotion. I kind of learned that you really have to be hungry for the work. It's not good enough just to get your website up, get a bunch of work out there and expect that people are going to come to you. I was quite lucky in the first instance. I don't know how usual it is to get so many referrals off one good client that I had. But yeah, I think that that if I'd kind of been more proactive in actually going out there and looking for work rather than waiting for it to come to me, then things might have kicked off a little bit quicker. So a couple of years went by. The business was ticking along well. I was making enough money to get by and stuff like that. But I decided to mix it up a bit and move over to the UK. Well, my future wife, I guess, obviously kind of officially decided that we were going to move over to the UK, but I was happy to go along for the ride at the time. So we moved to a city in the north of England called Leeds, and things started off really well. It wasn't the usual London adventure. Leeds is a little bit of a smaller city, kind of surrounded by rural landscapes and things like that. So a bit of a different way than a lot of people do it. But we immersed ourselves in the English culture, exploring the countryside and kind of just really taking in everything that the UK had to offer. I started wearing a flat cap, got a huge Union Jack tattoo on my back. I didn't actually get a Union Jack tattoo on my back, but yeah, it just really kind of taking in everything that that England had to throw at me was I think a great experience. Yeah, so not only kind of just being immersed in another culture, but kind of being in that sort of situation is a really good way to give yourself a new perspective on design as well. I'm sure that people get inspiration from a lot of different sources, and it's easy just to sit there on a computer going through Instagram or whatever to get your inspiration. But actually being out there in the real world, I found being kind of exposed to different things like the UK had was a great thing for me. So how did I start from scratch in a new country? It was actually a lot like starting from scratch in Perth. The first thing I needed to do was to get local clients. Well, the first thing I actually needed to go do was get a little studio cat to keep me company in my home studio. But the second thing I needed to do was to find local clients. By the way, this is Willow. I've got like 10,000 photos of her, so if anyone's interested after the talk, come up and talk to me and we can go through them. So where was the work coming from? I started advertising the business on a few online platforms, small business directories. I put some ads on Gumtree, sort of things like that, and kind of just trying to increase my sort of online presence as much as I could. It worked okay, but it wasn't great. So the main problem, I think, was that for the kinds of clients that I was attracting, cost was sort of the primary concern that they had. They weren't as interested in the quality of work. So I kind of I wasn't doing things that were really that creatively satisfying, and the pay honestly wasn't that good for those kind of clients either. But from the part-time job that I had when I first started the business in Perth, I had a bit of experience with recruitment, and I was lucky enough to source some recruitment agencies that specialised in the creative industry. So I actually don't know what it's like over here, but you do find kind of creative specific recruitment over there, and it worked out pretty well. I got some freelance gigs in design studios and things like that, and I got some sort of mid-term placements as sort of an in-house designer for some companies too. And this was what became the mother lode for me as far as kind of getting me set up. So it all came down to relationships again. Whether it's kind of technically the right thing to do is maybe a little bit questionable, but I approached these sort of larger companies that I'd worked for and said if they ever wanted any future work done, that I would be happy to be contacted directly. And more importantly, in the short time that I was working for them, I put in as much effort as I could. So anything that I could do to be the best possible freelancer that they could have asked for, I did it. You know, it's so many of the businesses after I'd finished the fixed term contract with them contacted me to get future work done, and a couple of them have kind of become golden clients for me that I get about probably 80% of my UK business through. These are the people that I established those relationships with to start with. So in addition to that, because of the work that I'd put in developing relationships with my Australian clients, I managed to hold on to a lot of them and continue doing work for Australian clients at the same time. So I was making a decent living out of doing corporate design and small business branding. But I kind of was increasingly feeling like I was chained to my desk, chained to my computer, and I sort of wanted to get back to working with my hands and back to the physical side of design. So I'd been following some hand lettering and calligraphy accounts on Instagram. I kind of really wanted to give it a go, but sort of I didn't really have, I kind of didn't really have the skills or the know-how of how I wanted to get there at the time. So what I did was embarked on Project 365. So it was a daily lettering project, a year's worth of posts on Instagram where I'd do a piece of lettering or calligraphy every day for a year. And it was the perfect way to learn a new skill. Having kind of a definitive goal really helped to keep me on track. And while I was doing the project, I started hooking up with other people that were doing similar projects. And it was kind of sort of like I developed an idea that there was an expectation that people were expecting me to put posts up. And it really helped to keep me motivated to keep going. And I learned heaps in the time that I was doing that. So you're thinking, this is probably the start of my successful illustration and lettering career, right? But it wasn't. The main problem was that I kind of just sat on the idea for too long. I didn't capitalise on the momentum that I'd built through the project, and it kind of just never ended up going anywhere. I had some small jobs where I integrated some lettering and stuff into work for existing clients, but I didn't really focus on adding that kind of work to my online folio. It was kind of just little supplemental like bits and pieces for existing clients that I had. So it kind of, the experience gave me gave me two of kind of the biggest lessons that I had throughout the course of my career so far, I think. The first one is to capitalise on those chances that you do have. And the second one is that your folio is going to be the work that you're going to be getting. So without creating a folio that was really focused on the lettering and the work that I wanted to be doing, I kind of just kept getting the same jobs that I'd always been getting. And it was really kind of a massive missed opportunity for me at the time. And when you look back on things, like when I look back on it now, it seems so obvious. Like why, if this was the kind of work that I wanted to be doing, why didn't I clear everything else out off my website and just put all of that stuff in there and focus on that? And you know, retrospect is a great thing, but when you are kind of just in the day-to-day kind of grind of doing the same work and making sure that you're going to be earning the money that you want to be earning and stuff, it's easy to just kind of not think about that kind of stuff and not figure out why it wasn't going where I want it to. So I think one of the most important things is to visualize the direction that you want to take the business in. It seems like such a simple change to make, but imagining what you want to be doing and really focusing all your attention on sort of seeing yourself there and putting the steps in place to get there is so important. So at that time, I kind of started to take stock of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, and it helped me to formulate a plan to get there. So the first thing I did was to organise my, my space in my home office mentally to push myself in the direction that I wanted to take things. So I had the little home studio. I had a small desk where I had like all my papers and pens and pencils and stuff set up, and I had a big desk that I had my computer on because at the time that's where I spent kind of the most of my time in the space. So a simple change that I made was to move my computer over to the small desk and have a massive desk where I'd have all of my like calligraphy and lettering gear and stuff set up. And honestly, it was a massive change. Just kind of, it's crazy how much your focus can shift when I got into the studio and the kind of big area, the dominant space in there was the one that I was going to be doing the lettering work on. So I also realized that I needed to have more interaction with other creatives. I'd spent years working at home, which worked out great, but I wanted to kind of be around other people that would be inspirational and that I could bounce ideas off and things like that. So I mean, apart from the odd freelance gig in different studios and agencies that I had spent a lot of time on my own. And you can't really underestimate the importance of being surrounded by other like-minded individuals. So I've actually recently moved into a co-working space with other designers, photographers and illustrators. And it's in a building that also houses about a dozen other kind of small to medium-sized design studios. And it's been amazing. There's downsides to it, of course. Working from home is super easy. My fixed costs have gone up now, and not being at home as much has meant that I've had to leave some of the best parts of the home studio behind. I told you there's thousands of these, honestly. I could go all day. But yeah, so I started kind of projecting the direction that I wanted to move in. Before, people would kind of ask me what I did, and I'd say, I'm a designer, and then, what kind of design do you do? And I think about what's on my website, and I'm like, well, I do a lot of small business branding, corporate design, things like that. And in my head, I guess that's how I saw myself. But when I'd moved into this co-working space, I'd meet other designers and business owners, and I started introducing myself as Ben Cole, calligrapher and lettering artist, and it was massive. Just having that kind of idea in my head about what I wanted to be doing and where I wanted to be going made a huge difference. So what was the result? Well, I've started getting more commissions for lettering and illustration projects from some of the businesses that I'm working around. I'm getting a decent portfolio of that kind of work, and in the process of launching a new website at the moment. And I'm actually going to be painting my first mural on the wall of one of the design studios in Leeds when I get back. So all in all, it worked out really well. So let's recap. What have I learned over the course of my career so far? These are probably the best pieces of advice that I could give you to help you to achieve your goals in building a freelance business. So first of all, capitalise on those opportunities. More than likely, most people are only going to get a handful of really good opportunities over the course of their career, ones that are going to skyrocket your business into a new direction or just really open doors for you to be successful. And it's those people that actually capitalise on those chances that are going to have a much easier path to success. Second is to treat those golden clients right. I mean, obviously it's a good idea to treat all of your clients right, but the way that I've found it anyway is that I've always had a small number of clients which are giving me the majority of the income that I'm earning as a business owner. So for those clients, always give them 150%. You know, be available whenever, give it the highest quality standard that you can, and keeping that kind of steady ongoing source of income is really going to help you. Next, your folio is the work that you'll get. I mean, again, it sort of sounds obvious, but don't assume that your clients are going to know exactly what kind of work that you want to be doing. Keep your folio really focused on what you want to be doing, and that's what you're going to be targeted for. And finally, just visualize your goals. The mental game is so important. Visualizing exactly where you want to be going will help you to adjust all of your activities to kind of get yourself in that direction. So that's about it. Thanks very much, and if you've got any questions, let me know. Hey.
I'm just wondering, what kind of application on your portfolio do you have of your lettering? How do you actually put that into your folio and still make it stand up to like your mock-ups and things like that?
As in, how do I like present the work and things like that? Yeah. I find that having it sort of depends on who you're kind of targeting it towards. Like if I'm trying to get work with other design studios to get them to use me as a freelancer and stuff like that, they'll like to see the kind of process from start to finish. So you show the sketching phase and how you're getting your ideas and stuff like that, and then the finished product. Whereas if you're working for clients directly, I find that they don't really care about all of the initial kind of stuff like that. So just seeing sort of finished, polished products is what they're generally after.
Okay, cool.
Does that answer?
Yeah, I suppose for us that are sort of playing around with it, we've got a few samples that are good.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, doing something to put on a book cover or something to present at that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's the kind of stuff that I've been doing has been like, you know, big chalkboards and stuff like that. So it's easy to kind of take a photo of the finished product and stuff like that. But I mean, I kind of, again, it really depends on who you're going to be focusing your folio towards as to exactly what they're going to want to be seeing, you know. But the more that you can actually get it, not necessarily just mocked up in Photoshop onto something, but actually a real object or something that you can take a photo of, I think that's usually the best way to go. It's a little bit more difficult to get it sorted out, but I think it has better results.
Hi. Particularly with working overseas, have you ever had any trouble getting work without having a university degree?
Nobody really asks about my qualifications, to be honest. Like,
your body of work is what they look to.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, like I said, one of the big resources was going through the recruitment companies that were finding the work for me. So, I mean, it was, like I said, I don't really know what the situation is, whether you have access to the same kind of resources here. But having a company that would just ring me up and say, look, I've got this design studio, they need a freelancer to come in for you know, for a few days this week. Are you free to be able to do it? And then the only thing that agency would look for was the folio of my work. So no one asks for a CV with any qualifications or anything like that. They basically just want to know what I've done and whether it's kind of it fits with their company.
Okay, interesting.
Ben, could you talk to the guys a little bit perhaps about how important you think it is to be able to balance the business side, like you're creative, and especially as you've moved more to the hand skills, and so presumably it's a slightly different niche or client market. How important you see having the business skills to keep up that side of things, how you manage those?
Sure,
those
yeah. The business skills are huge. Like so like I said at the start, I had a marketing degree. I have a marketing degree, but honestly, it didn't really teach me a lot about how to run a business and how to kind of keep things going. It'll be one of those things that you really just pick up as you're going through. But I mean, I would spend it's frustrating. I would spend 50% of my time maybe working and getting paid, and 50% of my time doing everything else that just keeps the business going. It's the hard part about doing it on your own rather than actually working for a company that's going to be giving you work. So I mean, everything from from invoicing, keeping like a good handle and organisation on all of your files and everything like that. I mean, emails take up way too much of my time. I'd love to have someone that could just email all my clients and get that out of the way, because it really takes a long time. And then you get into the situation of doing your tax returns and everything like that. It's a lot of work to keep things going. But I mean, in a way, it's a trade-off between having to do all of that organisational stuff and then having complete freedom over the creative things that you're doing. So for me, it's definitely worthwhile. And especially now moving more towards the calligraphy and hand lettering thing, it's a relief to get away from the computer and just smash out a couple of concepts and stuff and connect with pencil and paper again. And it makes it a really good sort of work-life balance for me. Does that answer your question?
What percentage would you say of your work is freelancing for maybe studios and agencies? What are actually working with clients and doing it yourself?
At the moment, probably about 90% is just working directly with clients and about 10% with agencies. So it's kind of, I use it as a good fallback. If work is a little bit slow, I'll give the recruitment company a call. Again, these guys have been so valuable. And I'll say, look, I'm available for the next month or something. If you've got anything in, just kind of remind them that you exist and things like that. And then they'll throw a couple of things my way. But yeah, for the most part, it's working directly with clients. I do, yeah. But I mean, it's not always busy. Like, especially around Christmas time, the end of the year, things slow down massively, and I always have that kind of late November, early December kind of shitting my pants. Am I going to get enough work to get me through? And again, I mean, that's one of the things about going at your own. You're not gonna, you're gonna have to deal with those quiet periods and stuff like that. But it's kind of just having a bit of faith and knowing that things are going to pick back up again, that kind of keeps you going.
Sorry, me again. Did you have to deal with, because I know you're in the UK now, but did you do that transition to paying GST versus not paying GST? So
I am not GST registered and not VAT registered in the UK as well. So it's, I didn't have to deal with anything like that.
Do you use like a software, an accounting software or something?
I don't. I mean, this is one of these things that that probably I could do better in my business. I'm the first one to admit that there's probably better ways to organise all of that. I've got an accountant who does my tax returns, but I don't. The hardest thing I think was to keep track of. Because when I started, I was just populating a spreadsheet with all of the earnings that I was making and all of my outgoings and things like that. And the difficult thing was doing currency conversions, because you have to report all of your income in Australia that you're earning in Australia and in the UK. So yeah, that was kind of the most difficult thing, was just getting my head around that. So that's why I got an accountant to get everything sorted out for me. And I send him a spreadsheet at the end of the financial year, and luckily he takes care of most of that. Hey.
Have you ever had problems with crippling insecurity?
Yeah, honestly. all the time, especially when I started doing. It'll be the most common thing. You think you're the only one, but it's ridiculous how common it is. And I mean, even these days, you kind of have that wonder in your head, is this good enough? Are people going to like it? And it's just a case of having a bit of faith. And you know, look, even when you translate it to something like this, I came in here today, I'm standing up in front of all of you guys and I'm like, is anyone actually gonna fucking care what I have to say? It's a constant thought that that goes through a lot of people's heads, I think. And you've just gotta push through it. People will be like way more open to the ideas that you have than you probably think. So yeah, just keep plugging away. And
so have you ever like bombed with a client, like they hire you and then they regret hiring you?
Yeah, I have, and like it's yeah, and it's that kind of awkward. Like there's an awkward phase where you'll present concepts to them, and then they'll seem a little bit hesitant and not really be that responsive to it. I've had a couple of branding jobs where basically I'll be working through concepts and I'll be super happy with stuff that I've got, and then I'll give it to them and they don't seem interested at all. And it becomes, I've never actually lost a client as a result of that, like I've never not finished a job, but I've had a couple where you get to the phase where you give them what you think is going to work for them, and then slowly they chip away at it until they basically just get you to do exactly what they want you to do, and it becomes a case of just being a monkey with a hammer smashing away at something until it looks exactly like what they want. And yeah, it's like they're not creatively satisfying jobs, but the way that I think about it is that you're not always going to be on the same page with someone. Like they might have a completely different idea in their head about what they want than what you thought they wanted. And although, you know, it is your job to do your absolute best to try to interpret what they're after, sometimes clients and designers just kind of can't get on the same page, you know.
Is your 365 project available anywhere online? I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it's on Instagram, so I don't know if any of... No, it's not. It's Mr. Ben Cole.
Okay.
I can... Yeah, I don't think, because this is the thing as well, I got to the stage where I wanted to separate the Ben Cole design part of the business from all of the lettering stuff, because I kind of realized that if I had a few little lettering projects and stuff like that up on the website, it wasn't really enough to sway people to kind of get across to them what I wanted to be doing. So I'm actually, it's really only been in the last few months that that the lettering and calligraphy stuff has kind of come together. The 365 project was done a year and a bit ago, but yeah, it's kind of trying to get it focused away from the corporate and small business branding of Ben Cole Design and into Mr. Ben Cole Calligraphy and Lettering Artist that I've kind of started to do.
Thanks. Is that your desire to be, almost completely immersed in that side, but you'd still take on some small business clients?
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, I guess it's the same sort of situation as what I was talking about, that those clients that I've kind of built up over the course of the last like few years, they're going to be the ones that, especially at the outset, are going to still be the ones that are going to be giving me the money. So I'll keep the Ben Cole Design, that brand is going to stay, the website's going to stay, and it's going to be focused on the kind of work that I've been doing. But I'll slowly sort of start transitioning over to do more of what I want to do, and eventually, Ben Cole Design might fall by the wayside, and I'll have a new calligraphy and lettering artist as my kind of primary online persona. Cool. All right, thanks guys.